Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be going over the Miami Dolphins offense in 2021 and what it's going to look like. What can we expect from the Dolphins offense next season? Before we get started though, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate that. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and let's dive right into it. So let's start by talking about the 2020 Miami Dolphins before we talk about the 2021 Miami Dolphins. In the 2020 Miami Dolphins, especially on offense, I mean, you can look at the numbers here. Ryan Fitzpatrick was their leading passer. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa played some games too. So no quarterback really had a great season for them. Rushing wise, Myles Gaskin led the charge with 584 rushing yards. Receiving wise, Devante Parker with just shy of 800 receiving yards. And defensively, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, those were the big name players for them. And at the end of the day, they didn't have any standout performances. There weren't really any guys that had fantastic, phenomenal seasons on the offensive side of the football, especially at the skill positions. Mike Gesicki was pretty solid, but overall, this was a team that kind of struggled offensively. And the weird thing is that if you look at the stats, it doesn't really show that they struggled that much offensively, and that's because their defense gave them a lot of help. They ranked 15th in the league in team offense. But when we look at passing offense and rushing offense, we can see something a little bit different. Passing offense-wise, they ranked number 20th in the league last season. And then if we look at rushing offense-wise, I believe they ranked number 22 in the NFL last season. So overall, this was a squad that did not really have that much success throwing the football, not that much success running the football, but was able to get a lot of points because of their defense. But now we look towards the future here, and the 2021 offense for Miami is going to be different. It really is. And the reason it's going to be different is because the Dolphins are going to implement a new offense coordinator and offense philosophy. Obviously, Chan Gailey is out the door, so we don't have to deal with him anymore. But Eric Studesville, as well as George Godsey, the two co-offensive coordinators for the Miami Dolphins now. They were the running backs coach, I think, and George Godsey might have been the tight ends coach or quarterbacks coach. I don't quite remember. I know Studesville was the running backs coach last year. But these are two guys that are going to be really emphasizing cohesiveness and collaboration, and that's something that they have been talking about all offseason, as you can see in this article. But really, it's all about collaboration, making sure that everyone is going to have input on the playbook, everyone having input on the situation, making sure it's comfortable. And it's a little bit of 2020, it's a little bit of 2021, it's a little bit of different things that they've seen over the past few years to make sure that guys are comfortable with the playbook and really making sure that it's a cohesive effort that finds success. Now, though, let's look at the guys on the roster, and let's really dive into what is this team capable of. So if this computer will ever load and not, be all slow and annoying, we can talk about that. So let's start with Tua Tagovailoa, Jacoby Brissett, the quarterbacks here. Tua, this is a massive season for Tua. He's finally got the weapons around him where he's going to have the chance to succeed. And let's see if my computer's going to allow me to do this. He finally has the chance to succeed. Last year was a little bit of a tough season for him. 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, just shy of 2,000 yards, and a 52.5 QBR. So pretty rough, especially after being drafted 5th overall. Just in 2020. So that was a tough rookie season for him. Had a chance to make the playoffs, lead the Dolphins to the playoffs in Buffalo. Didn't end up happening, so that was kind of tough. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that has had a lot of success before playing football, especially in college. We saw what he was able to do last season. I mean, 64% completion percentage for your first season in the NFL isn't terrible. And you got to remember that there's other quarterbacks in the league that are really good now that really struggled in their first season. Look at a guy like Josh Allen. And although Tua Tagovailoa doesn't really fit that Josh Allen mold, I still think that Tua and what he's able to bring to the football field, his leadership, his knack for the football, his knack for finding those passes, also not really turning the ball over, only had 5 interceptions. And sure, he should have probably had more like towards 8 or 9 because a few of them were lucky that didn't happen. But overall, this is a guy that I think has the ability to put a team on his back. He really does. It's really, can he get the job done? Last year, the issue was that there weren't any weapons to throw to. Preston Williams was injured. Devante Parker was injured. Mike Gesicki was getting double teamed. And there was no real consistency at running back. There was Matt Breida for a little bit who had a few nice games. Salvon Ahmed had a few nice games. Myles Gaskin had a few nice games. But the offense also looked like it was built for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It looked like it was built for a guy who could really be a gunslinger, push the ball 17 yards down the field in tight windows. That's not Tua's game. Tua's game is sitting back in the pocket, surveying the field, finding the open man, and getting it to him. So I think that, that's going to be special too, especially an offense that's built for Tua. I think that that'll make a lot of difference in that regard. And then you got to talk about Jacoby Brissett, who came over as a backup for the Dolphins for this offseason. He's a guy with quality experience. Obviously, he played behind Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis. He's played behind Tom Brady in New England. He's had some experience as a starter, so he's a perfect backup, really solid mentor for Tua. And we saw what Ryan Fitzpatrick was able to do with Tua in that relationship last year. But I think getting a guy like Brissett, who can be a starter too. I mean, if Tua is injured, he's not a bad back quarterback. He's a reliable guy. He's played in big games before, and I think that would be absolutely massive for that Dolphins offense. Getting a legit backup quarterback really help the growth and development of Tua. Talking about the run game now, Myles Gaskin was good for the Dolphins last year. He really was, 580-ish rushing yards for that Dolphins team. He led them in that regard. But, I also really like Salvon Ahmed, too. I think Salvon Ahmed, that 1-2 punch, Salvon Ahmed's much more of an elusive back. Gaskin can catch the ball in the backfield. I mean, I guess they're both guys that can catch the ball in the backfield. Both of them played at University of Washington. They were Huskies there together, teammates, too. And Gaskin, I think, could really have a good season. I mean, he really was productive as a pass catcher last year. I don't know the exact stats on him, and I don't really want my computer to blow up. Let's see if I risk it here to, get that. But nonetheless, I mean, Gaskin's a guy who I think can bring a lot to the table. I mean, you just saw the stats there pop up for a second. Now they don't want to move. But 584 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 4.1 average yards per rush. But pass catching, I think it was another really big thing for him, and I think that was something that really added to his game. If we look at his receiving numbers in the last 5 games of the season, you can see that he was actually really productive in that Las Vegas game where he had 87 receiving yards, no receiving touchdowns. But I mean, look at the game against the Bengals: 90 receiving yards, 47 receiving yards against the Rams, 91. Oh, those aren't receiving yards; those are rushing yards. My bad. This thing doesn't want to load. Yeah, here we go. Receiving it wise, 5 catches, 82 yards against Las Vegas with 2 receiving touchdowns. But you can see he was productive as a pass catcher, consistently catching 4, 5, 3 balls per game. And especially, I mean, like this guy was really good on checkdowns. He's got the legs to run under footballs and make big plays, and he's got the elusiveness as well as the speed outside of just pure running the football to be a really impact guy. So I really like what he brings to the team, and I think that he can be a 700, 800 yard rusher with 500 yards receiving too, and I think that could be a really big part of the Dolphins offense. But we've also got to talk about Malcolm Brown too. Malcolm Brown came over this offseason via free agency from the LA Rams. He's another guy I'm pretty excited about too. I think he's much more of a power back, gives this Dolphins team a true power back to run the football in between the tackles, get those goal line situations, and I guess in a way that's kind of like what Jordan Howard was supposed to do last season. He was supposed to be that downhill running back that could really just get those gritty yards and get those touchdowns. And although that's not really what he ended up being able to do, he was just awful. Malcolm Brown, much more of a guy who can be that power back and really get downhill, but he can also catch the back out of the back. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So I really like this running back group for this Dolphins team. I like Gaskin, I like Malcolm Brown, I like Salvon Ahmed. They all complement each other, and I think that they give this Dolphins offense a lot of versatility. And although the Dolphins, I don't think have a true guy that you can give 25 carries to a game, I think by giving Gaskin somewhere in the ballpark of 14 to 16, Malcolm Brown giving him around 5 carries a game, maybe Salvon Ahmed another 5 carries, I think that this Dolphins running game can be solid. I don't think it's going to be above average, but I think it can be near 18th best in the league and really support what could be a very solid passing game. Talking about solid passing game, let's talk about Devante Parker, Will Fuller, Jaylen Waddle, and Preston Williams, Lynn Bowden. This is a deep wide receiver room. And it starts with Devante Parker after getting that massive contract extension a few years ago after having that really productive season. He struggled with injuries. He really has struggled with injuries. That's always been a concern with him. But when he's healthy and when he's able to play, this guy is really good. And we saw a little bit of what him and Tua Tagovailoa could do. And what he could do was, throw touchdowns, right? We saw that game, that opening drive against Denver, where actually I think it might not have been the opening drive. It might have been the second drive of the game where after Xavier Howard had that interception, Tua kind of just tossed that ball up to the back corner of the end zone for Devante Parker. But Devante Parker is a guy that I think could be really, really big for this Dolphins team. And I'm just going to start putting these receivers in here so I can, get some stats for you guys. But nonetheless, I mean, I think that Parker, true number one receiver, the question for him is, can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy? He's struggled with injuries in the past few years, but when he's on the field, he is one of the best 50-50 jump ball receivers in the entire league. So that's something to watch out for. And I think that, what he's able to bring to the bring to this Dolphins offense is bring a big play receiver who, 63 catches, 793 yards, 4 touchdowns. And that's what he does. I mean, he's a really, really solid receiver when he's able to stay on the football field. It's just the question of, can he stay on the football field? Can he be healthy? And those are the question marks. Then for a guy like Will Fuller, sure, he's going to be suspended the first game of the season, just because of the whole PED thing. But I think this was a really nice pickup for this Dolphins offense. Coming over on a 1-year, I think $10 million deal from Houston. 53 catches last year, 879 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. He was absolutely dynamic at opening the field up and really adding speed to an offense that needed a lot of speed last year. Sure, Jakeem Grant has speed, but other than Jakeem Grant, there weren't any burners. There weren't any guys that could really open up the field. Will Fuller brings that, and he was extremely productive last year. In a way, he kind of reminds me of a better Kenny Stills. If Dolphins fans will remember him, maybe a Kenny Stills that can catch. Concern with him, though, is injuries. He hasn't really played a full season in his entire NFL career. The only thing, though, when he's on the field, he's dynamic, he's explosive, he can spread out a defense, and that's exactly what the Dolphins need. And then you talk about, the 6th overall pick in this year's draft, Jaylen Waddle. What an exciting talent. I mean, this guy has speed for days. He's a burner. Obviously, played with Tua at Alabama, had a lot of success with Tua at Alabama. And that's why the Dolphins wanted to bring him into Miami. He's a guy that can stretch the field out. He's a guy that's really good at route running underneath routes. And although it does scare me that, he's much more of a speed guy, and especially taking speed guys in the first round, that hasn't really worked out well in the past. I think that what Jaylen Waddle was able to do at Alabama really makes him a lethal weapon for this Dolphins team, just with what he's able to do with Tua Tagovailoa. We've seen it in the past, but more importantly, what he's able to do with his speed and stretch out the field. And then Lynn Bowden Jr., I want to talk about, and I want to talk about Jakeem Grant a little bit too. Lynn Bowden, I mean, I thought he was a really nice option for that Dolphins offense. When, all those guys went down. Preston Williams went down with injury, and that's another guy. Preston Williams, I mean, might be out of a job soon, but he was a really solid receiver too. Big jump ball receiver, can go up and catch the football, but he also has the speed to take those deeper routes into play. So I like the depth here. Preston Williams, he's a really solid guy, and he was the number 2 receiver for the Dolphins last year. Now he's probably the number 4 receiver, and Lynn Bowden Jr. was probably the number 3, number 4 receiver last year. Now he's the number 5 receiver, and Lynn Bowden Jr. also offers a lot of versatility. He can throw the football a little bit. He can run the football. He's a gadget player. I think Jakeem Grant might be done. His time with the Dolphins might be done. But I mean, also the depth here: Albert Wilson, Allen Hurns, Matt Collins, Malcolm Perry. All these guys are legit NFL players. The truth is, though, how many wide receivers are the Dolphins going to want to carry? But I think those top 5, Parker, Fuller, Waddle, Williams, and Lynn Bowden Jr., are all probably safe. I love what each of them bring to the table, and I think that versatility of this offense. But more importantly, the wide receivers on this offense are really going to be very influential. I think this passing game can be top 15 in the league if Tua can get the connections going. And I mean, let's look at the tight ends for a second. Gesicki was absolutely fantastic last year, and you got to remember this Dolphins tight end group was the most productive tight end group in Dolphins history. You got to remember that. That is an important stat to know. And the Dolphins added another tight end in the draft, and Hunter Long. If you look at Gesicki, this guy had a breakout year last year with 53 catches for 703 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. And what Mike Gesicki brings to the table is he brings a guy who can make big catches. He's good in the red zone, but more importantly, he makes big catches. What I mean by he makes big catches is he makes the big plays. He goes up and catches the football. He can catch the ball with one hand. He's got sticky fingers. He's good in open space, and he's a guy that you can really trust. Gesicki really shined last year after being drafted in the second round back in 2018 out of Penn State. But this is a guy that has big personality. He brings a lot to this Dolphins offense. But more importantly, he's a guy that I think could really add a lot of talent to this team. He's a guy that was really the number 2 playmaker on offense last year for this team, and he's big in the red zone. He's another guy that really heads the tight end room, and I think that Gesicki and that Tua Tagovailoa connection is going to be important, especially as a safety valve. But I still want to talk about Durham Smythe. I want to talk about Adam Shaheen, and I want to talk about Hunter Long. Hunter Long, especially, I think, is probably the second best pass catching tight end on this roster. He's a guy that I think can really be almost like a Hunter Henry kind of thing, where he's much more of a yards after catch guy, possession catch guy. He's a guy that isn't going to really take the top off the team with the defense, but he's a matchup nightmare in the sense that he's quiet, but he does what he needs to do, and he does the dirty work but also he's a really good run blocker. I'm talking about good run blockers. Adam Shaheen, Durham Smythe, they caught a few touchdowns each last year, but as run blockers, they're really, really influential in that run game. Part of the reason that run game was so lethal last year, at times, I didn't say all year, but especially against the Patriots. I mean, you saw what Durham Smythe was able to do. You saw what Adam Shaheen was able to do. You saw what the offensive line was able to do. But I really like this tight end group. I think it's super underrated, but you've got two really good pass-catching tight ends. Mike Gesicki, obviously, up among the NFL's best. I'd say he's a top 10 tight end. Hunter Long, really good pass-catching tight end in college. And you've got two of the NFL's better run-blocking tight ends in Durham Smythe and Adam Shaheen. So really, versatility is all about this offensive team. But tight end-wise, they've got versatility too. O-line now, let's talk about the rookies from last year. Austin Jackson, Solomon Kindley, and Robert Hunt were all pretty good last season. I thought that Solomon Kindley probably played the best. He's probably going to be slotting over to left guard as Robert Hunt slots over to right guard. And then it's either a toss-up between Jesse Davis and Liam Eichenberg for that right tackle spot. But nonetheless, I really like what this offensive line has. They're young, they're talented, and they're only going to get better. Hunt was pretty good in the games he played last year. Sure, he saw some ups and saw some downs, but I was really inspired by his performance early in the year against the 49ers, playing that right tackle role. Austin Jackson was injured for a little bit, but when he was healthy, really solid at left tackle. He did give up a few sacks, but he was definitely worth that first-round pick. Really showed that he could be a big player to run behind in the run game, but also be a solid pass protector. And then Solomon Kindley, really, really phenomenal. Picked in the 4th round out of Georgia, only last season. And this guy was so big in the run game. He was a mauler, really making sure to open up the run game. And the difference between when he was in the lineup and when he was out of the lineup for the run game was really seen. The real things that I want to talk about, though, is the center, Matt Skura. Obviously, Ted Karras no longer with the team. He ended up re-signing with the Patriots this offseason. And the Dolphins went out and decided to get Matt Skura, who is an average to below average center. That's what he is. That is what he is. Skura is a guy who had some problems with snapping last season, as well as the past few seasons for the Ravens, but he's a guy who's good in pass protection, good in run blocking, but overall he's a solid center. The truth is, can he stay healthy, and can he work on those issues? But overall, he's a no-brainer for just a solid plug-and-play center for this Dolphins team. And then right tackle, I think Jesse Davis, what he's able to do is bring a lot of versatility to this offense. I keep on talking about versatility for this team, and I think that's a huge key for this Dolphins team. It's something that Brian Flores preaches, especially for his defense, but also I guess for his offense too. This is a guy, Jesse Davis, who's played right guard before. He's played left tackle. He's played left guard. He can play a little bit of center. You can plug and play him anywhere. But I think it will probably end up being Liam Eichenberg at right tackle, just, drafting him in the 2nd round, trading up with the Giants to go out and get him. And I love what he was able to do in college. He was a plug-and-play guy from the beginning of this whole draft process. But he was one of the best tackles in the country at Notre Dame. But more importantly, he's a guy that he can play the left tackle position, he can play the right tackle position. He can be a plug-and-play guy for this Dolphins team. And I think that the versatility that Jesse Davis provides, as well as Robert Hunt and Solomon Kindley can play left guard and right guard. Hunt can play right guard and right tackle. Jackson can play left tackle. Probably is big enough to play left guard, but I don't really think that's where he'll end up being. He'll be at left tackle. Solomon Kindley will be at left guard. Hunt will be at right guard, and I think Eichenberg will be at right tackle. This is a young offensive line. It means that they're going to have some struggles, but that means that they're also going to improve. So I think this team last year, offensive line-wise, was probably in the bottom. It was definitely in the bottom half of the league, but definitely on the rise from seasons prior. This year, I think that they can be an average offensive line. I really do. I think that they have the talent to do that. And I think that, each year, I think that they can get better and better. And, maybe in a year, I think this could be a top 10 offensive line. Overall, though, let's look at this offense. Is this offense really good enough to be a playoff contender? I think that they've got all the weapons they need, especially in the passing game. The run game is a little bit of concern. They don't have a true workhorse back that you can give 25 carries a game to. But I think that they've got a nice complement of Gaskin, Brown, and Ahmed that can be productive. Wide receiver-wise, I love this wide receiving core, and if Tua can't find success passing and throwing the football, then I don't think Tua is the guy this year, especially with Parker, Fuller, Jaylen Waddle. They all bring something different. Parker's that guy who can go up to catch the football. Fuller and Waddle are much more of those speed guys. And you've got Lindbaum Jr., who's an all-around weapon. Gesicki's really good in the passing game too, and I think that these weapons there are exactly what Tua needs to succeed. And then you've got a rising offensive line that I think is only going to play better. So I think this Dolphins offense can be a top 16 offense in the league, and I think that they're only going to continue to get better, especially as this team is pretty young with guys like Tua, guys like Jaylen Waddle, guys like Austin Jackson, Solomon Kindley, Robert Hunt. So I've got a lot of promise and a lot of hope for this Dolphins offense next season, but watch out for them to be probably a top a 16 offense next season. I think that would be the goal in year one under George Godsey and Eric Studesville. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.